Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Cynthia and today is the Ruby and Pearlxo design team project for the month of January, and I'm very excited to share with you what I created. So I'm giving you a sneak peek at the first example of what I made, just so you can get a sense of what we'll be creating together today. It's a little project that I wanted to do to create some more happy mail. And I'm just trying to find ways to use some of the envelopes that I received over the holidays and repurposing them into something that's beautiful and can serve a new purpose. So as always, I'll have all the information listed down below for the items that I'm using. All the digital prints that I'm using today are from Ruby and Pearlxo, and I will do my best to link the different packages that are different digital kits that I'm using, but her shop will be listed down below, and feel free to take a look at that. So this was the very first I guess like an envelope folder. I'm not too sure what to call this, but I wanted to create something that was very interactive and that would feel very pretty, but also filled with surprises for a happy mail. So I'm just showing you some of the other printables that I'd like to use. So the very first little folder that I created was more some neutrals with some greens, and then I want to do one that's using some pinks. And what I'm using as a base is 2 envelopes. I really hope that you're all doing really well and that you had a good holiday time. I'm just happy to be making some time for crafting again. So as you can see, this one opens up once, and there's a little belly band as well as a milk cap that holds some ephemera. And then once you flip that, there is a pocket to the left. So that one was created with an envelope, and there's also a pocket to the right, which I created with some fabric. And I've just tucked some different pieces of ephemera in there. You could tuck anything you want in there, of course. It's just to show you how it looks when it's all filled up. And so once you flip that again, I have another little flip just to cover as decoration, but you could certainly create more pockets there. And then finally, I have one more pocket at the very back end of the folder. So this is a very interactive project, and it's very versatile in the way that you can play around with the different envelopes you're using and really create different types of flaps. The one we're going to be creating today is going to be different, just to show you just how different it can look no matter how many envelopes you wish to use and how you want to pair them together. So of course you could add more to it, add more flips, add more decorations. This is just like my first prototype, but you can really let it take you wherever you wish and make it your own, make it your style. So the very first thing to do, I guess, for me was to take apart the envelopes and kind of play around with the flaps and seeing how I want to combine them, and just letting that inspire me a little bit. You could use 2 envelopes that are the same size. In my case, I used a smaller one and a bigger one. And I'm just using the prototype that I made to kind of inspire me. I do want them to be similar, but not the same. So like with everything else that I create, I'm gonna go ahead with what I know I want to help me move forward as I'm creating. With with projects like this, I often feel a little bit stuck, a little bit undecisive, unsure what I want to do, because there's so many options and so many ways you can do it. And I find that the best way to kind of get over that is just making some decisions, going ahead with them, and then seeing where that takes you. So I attached that smaller envelope to the bigger one and soon realized that I need to open that one too. I wasn't sure if I was going to, but ultimately I thought it would be best to open it and then create a different tuck spot, or I wasn't too sure exactly what I was going to be creating yet with that. But I'm just folding it different ways, trying to make a decision on what will work best for this layout. Throughout the video, I'm using mainly my ruler to tear the paper, and I'm also using a combination of glue, wet glue, and some double-sided tape. I ran out of glue, so I had to use double-sided tape, but of course, you know, use whichever adhesive that works best for you. So now that I have the bones kind of ready, I'm going to start assembling the different pieces that I know where I want them. So again, not sure exactly how every flap is going to be covered, but I have a relatively good idea of what I want the final product to look like. So in knowing some of those bigger items where I want them to be, I'm just going right ahead and placing what I know before having to try to figure out all of the other things that I don't know yet what I want. So right here, I attached a printable to the very front of the folder, and you can see here that's already something I did a little bit different. I didn't create that opening flap for this particular one. If you wanted to create an open flap, all you would have to do is glue down part of that paper and then just fold back the paper and not like glue it fully down. Essentially, it's as simple as that. But for this one, I wanted to show you that you can create some other things. So that particular printable is longer than my envelope, and I'm just going to be folding back the flap, and then I'm going to create something with that flap. So again, just doing something a little bit different than the first example, just to play around and explore my creativity that way. This was a pretty long project, to be honest. This video is, you know, just under 30 minutes, but I spent like 2 hours doing this. So, you know, be prepared to spend some time unless you know exactly what you're doing and you have like a very clear, a very clear vision of what you're doing. It might take a little while, but I find those sorts of projects very relaxing to work on and very pleasant, because you start from essentially nothing and it becomes something really pretty. So that's very satisfying. So I've pre-cut some elements just to make my life a little bit quicker here for this video. And I'm just going to start gluing all these little elements that I know where I want them. So slowly you're going to start seeing the two envelopes getting covered with some printables and some vintage papers, as well as music paper, just to, of course, make the envelope become more interesting. throughout creating this, I additioned many different papers, many different printables, as well as vintage papers. I cut out some of that just because of the length of the video, but it didn't come together super quickly. It was really a process. But just like the last Ruby and Pearl video I posted about making some happy mail, I really find that picking papers from one digital kit helps me making sure that it all really goes well together. Some people have a better incline to know what colors and patterns look really well together. I don't think that I am one of those person. I mean, I don't think I have a bad eye by any means, but it's not a gift for me. So I find that when I pick and choose from one digital kit, that portion of the hard work has already been done for me. So it does make it easier to make whatever project I'm working on a little bit more cohesive and very pleasant for the eye. So here I added a book page. It's a very thick vintage book page, and I'm using that as an extra flap. I did that for the first prototype I made, and you can see it slowly coming together. It's little by little, every part of that white envelope is getting covered by something more beautiful and something special. You could really use a variety of papers to create this project. And you also don't actually have to use envelopes. I just know for myself, around the holidays, I get a lot of cards, whether it's from work or from people, and I like to hold on to the cards, but then I have all these envelopes and it's great, but they can't all make it into my journal. And depending on the type of journal you're using, most of those card envelopes are too big for those journals. So this was a fun way to try and repurpose that. You could certainly use some magazine clippings, some scrapbook papers, or wrapping papers, any sort of other types of papers that you have laying around to recreate this if you don't have access to some printables. I just really like the look of printables, and they offer that vintage vibe for me while being a lot more sturdier than the original papers. In this project I used pieces, so like on the right, that vegetable growers association paper, that one is so brittle and I had to be so careful when I was gluing it and handling it. So that's one of the things with the vintage papers. When you have the originals, they may be very brittle, whereas the printables offer you that very similar look while being a lot sturdier depending on the paper you printed them on, of course, but it's a lot easier to maneuver sometimes. So here I cut out those really beautiful roses, and I am going to trim that a little bit more before backing it onto some music paper. And I'm just going to grossly cut around the music paper just to mimic a bit the form that my fussy cutting has. And that's going to become another tuck spot or pocket, I guess. I just find that there is something so special about something that continues to flip and like open up. It's like a box in a box in a box, and I love that so much. So that's really what I had in mind in creating this little flip up envelope folder. I'm not too sure how I'm gonna call this. Whatever is in the title is what I settled on, but I just am not very good at naming things like that way. Ay, ay, ay. So I'm really nearing the end of how much I have to cover. So I still have this inside flap as well as that little pocket there to the left. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab another print. And this one is a bit of a contrasting color, so I just thought it would bring a little bit of interest and contrast to the whole project. So here you see me referring back to my first project because I keep like kind of forgetting what I did or how I covered certain parts of the project and what kind of pockets or tuck spot or belly bands I created. So I'm just continuously kind of going back to that first one to continue to inspire myself and try and bring out some ideas of how I can do something a little bit different that will fit this particular folder better. So I have a piece of that fabric left. This fabric came in some bundles from Amy. I'll have her listed down below. She has really beautiful fabrics. And I'm just using some brad clips to attach it to the page. And using a piece of music paper and aligning it with what's already on this flip fussy cut part to create a bit of a small pocket. And some of the paper scraps to create a belly band. Just trying to use as much of the paper. As much of the paper. Oh my goodness. It's pretty early here, so I'm apparently having a hard time talking. And just using that to create a belly band, and I'm going to use some double-sided tape to stick that on there. adding a pocket at the bottom there. I reused the bottom of that printable, so it felt like really pretty together because it originally was together. I just ended up, having to trim it for it to fit properly. So that worked out nicely. And then now the only part I have left to cover is the back, because that one printable wasn't quite long enough to cover the full back side of the envelope. So I'm just using some paper scraps. And this piece of paper there was just literally breaking apart as I was gluing it down. It was not fun to work with, to be honest. Oh my gosh, I got really annoyed because it kept sticking to my fingers because I had glue on my fingers and the paper was just like disintegrating, and oh my gosh, it was really something. So now I still need to add a pocket like on the inside there, on the other side of that What Katie Did book page. But before I do that, I am going to ink up all the edges, so the edges and the folds. And for this particular project, I find that this is really the step that brings it all together. I don't ink all of my projects, and I don't like always ink when I'm creating in my journal. But oh, sorry, there's a car going off outside. But I definitely find that for this particular project, it's like what brings everything, all the paper, to blend in together and to become one, especially as the edges remain white if you don't do that. If you were using a different colored envelope or like a base that was not stark white like I did, it could be just fine without inking it, but just with the nature of it, I thought it was better to ink. And I did a couple more steps off camera, added some eyelets and the ribbon, as well as that pocket. But otherwise, here's the finished results. I'll let you take a look at that, and I will talk to you all in my next video. I thank you all so much for being here today and for joining me while I craft. I hope you're all doing really good, and I will talk to you all in my next one. Thanks again. Bye now.